Hey everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. Today we have an awesome guest. His name is Brent Kaneft, and he's the associate head of school in South Carolina at an independent K through 12 school. And Brent just moved with his whole family and a bunch of kiddos, and I just moved. So we're both kind of still, I don't know, do you have all your boxes unpacked? I don't.
Pretty much, yeah, at this point. That's my wife is a grinder, so she has done an excellent job with that for sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, you guys are ahead of me. I've got boxes everywhere. It's a disaster. So thanks for making time for us today,
Yeah,
Brent. So
absolutely. Thank you.
would love to hear your journey. You were just sharing, and I didn't hit record quick enough. So
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I started off coming out of college really as a roofer. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I got on the construction site, and that didn't last long in South Carolina. Being on the roof was a little hot,
Mm,
and so I said, well, I've been working with kids some in high school and in college and that sort of thing. And so I decided to try to teach, but there weren't any teaching jobs at the time. So went into wilderness therapy instead. So I don't know if you're familiar with wilderness therapy.
mm,
I did wilderness therapy for a bit, and that is taking kids who are struggling with all sorts of things: depression, anxiety, drug addiction in some cases, and taking them out in the woods and teaching them how to kind of survive. And so the whole premise of it was teaching them skills that they could confidently execute, basic things like putting a shelter up
mm,
correctly, so
right.
that when they did it and that storm came, they would be dry. And if they didn't do it really well, they'd be really wet. So it had this kind of nice sort of natural consequences and whatnot. And those kids stayed out in the woods for up to 70 days sometimes. I mean, and it
Whoa.
really could be an intense time. I would be on with them about 2 weeks and then off for 2 weeks, and I come back and I get to see them grow and whatnot. But the whole program was really about them taking that sort of onus on themselves to take care of themselves, and be able to do that. So I love that. I didn't want to be in the woods that much. I love the woods, but it was quite intense.
Hmm.
So I landed a job at a boarding school after that, teaching English. And so from there, went to grad school, um, went to another boarding school after that, where my wife and I got married, and started having kids. And then decided that I really wanted to try my hand at curriculum and curriculum design. And I was English department chair, so I was getting to do some of that, but then found a job in Indianapolis at Park Tudor School to be the director of curriculum for the last 4 years. And so that's kind of how I got into that role. And now here I am at my alma mater in Sumter, South Carolina. I graduated from this school in 2000, so I'll be becoming the head of school in 23, 24. But this year I'll be the associate head and just kind of get to have this nice runway before I take over the leadership of the school and learn and listen and see what's happening and that sort of thing. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That was awesome. From a roofer in South Carolina, too hot. That's like, forget it. Then
Too
going
much.
into, yeah, wilderness therapy, which sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds so cool. And then, yeah, wow, that's a really cool story. And how, if you're comfortable, Brent, sharing something like, for example, anything that you struggled with when you were K through 12. Like, for example, for me in second and third grade, that's when all of my anxiety and depression started to really come out. And really no one talked about it. It was just kind of a hush hush and just suck it up and toughen up and let's not talk about feelings. And I thought, wow, that's not really helping. There's a lot going on in here that I'd love some help. So
Yeah.
if you're comfortable sharing anything, maybe you.
Yeah, I would say that, a similar experience in terms of not talking about it. I can't really say for sure if I experienced anxiety and depression as a young person, but I certainly, I know the first year I got to Park Tudor School and was a first year sort of senior administrator, I was overwhelmed with
Mm,
anxiety and just almost after the first few months didn't want to even come to school because there was such pressure. Um, a lot of expectations from parents, a lot of expectations from the faculty who are incredible faculty. And I just hadn't really, I didn't have the toolkit to sort of regulate and deal with that. And so I began a really healthy, consistent meditation practice my first year as an administrator, and I've since continued that. So I meditate, anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes a day.
Wow. Awesome.
And a lot of that is just sort of, my anxiety will run where I just want to get a lot of things done and check it off the box. And as a leader, I hated that about myself because I wasn't being present with people and, wasn't meeting them where they are and listening and slowing down and stopping, because I felt like there was so much on my plate
Mm.
that I couldn't do that. So, getting that practice in, I use the Waking Up app from Sam Harris. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a
No.
great meditation app. So that, kind of helped me enter into this space of mindfulness and meditation that I had been totally unaware of, before then. And that got me looking into how that works in schools and, what, kind of techniques and, skills that we could be teaching our kids, especially in the K-5, right, region. And so at Park Tutor, we began to sort of integrate mindfulness practices, throughout the school day, breathing techniques, some meditation. Parents were really receptive. We began to bring yoga into the curriculum, which is another piece of this. And that was actually really easy to do because, parents could see over these last few years of COVID that their kids were, in many cases, were really dysregulated. And
Mm.
so there were some real skills that they were bringing home and able to calm themselves down, able to do their mountain breaths, on their fingers and
Mm.
all that stuff. And so seeing a lot of the payoffs there, and it's kind of, we at Park Tutor School were a research informed school, a mind, brain, and education research informed school. And a lot of the research on mindfulness practice in classroom and helping kids regulate is good and solid and positive. And it looks like, yes, this is a good intervention. I still think there's more work to be done in that area, but we felt like it was making a really positive impact on our kids, especially over the last 4 years. But the program that I was also mentioning to you before is called the Zones of Regulation.
Mm.
And it's more complex than this. And I wasn't the one executing the curriculum, but definitely working with those who were. And essentially is that mindful moment where the teacher asks the student to check in and to define their emotions by a color.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, red, I'm super angry. Yellow, I'm feeling on the edge here a little bit. Green, I'm good to go. And we brought that in just as an easy way of our teachers being able to check in with kids at the very beginning of class or after recess or after lunch or whenever, so those pinnacle points or, before an assessment, something like that, so that they can really name their emotion. And when you can name your emotion, right, you can have some more authority over it, right? I don't know if you're familiar with Lisa Feldman Barrett's work.
No.
She is this, neuroscientist and emotional researcher. I'm forgetting the name of the book, How Emotions Are Made.
Okay.
And she talks about emotional granularity and
Mm.
the importance of us being able to specifically say and name the emotion we're feeling. So a lot of times we'll have that umbrella term of anxiety, but it might not be anxiety necessarily, right? And so the more specific we can be about the language we use, the better we're able to really pinpoint what it is and then know how to deal with it. And so zones of regulation would help students do that, right? What are you feeling in this red zone? What are you feeling in this green zone? What are you feeling in this yellow zone? And so we get a more sophisticated, more mature sort of emotional lexicon, if that makes sense, that our kids can kind of take with them into those upper grades and whatnot. So
That's
yeah,
great. Yeah, that's so true. The more you dial in and zone in on the particular emotion, then you
yeah.
can have a little more power and control over, or at least even recognizing or understanding. Do they tell me they have a blue zone, Brent? They've got
I
to
think
have
they do
one.
have a blue zone. Yeah,
Where
they
you're
do have a
feeling
blue zone too.
sad, down,
Yeah,
something's, yeah,
yeah,
because I felt
yeah.
like there's got to be a blue. Okay, good, good.
Well, it's funny. The one
Hmm.
thing that I wanted to do that wasn't able to do, which is an interesting to think about, is that there are heart rate monitors that are
Hmm.
also the same, mirror the same colors. And
Oh,
so you can
cool.
kind of track the data of their heart rate throughout the day, which I thought was neat in terms of seeing how accurate they were at naming where they're at, and in terms of their heart rate and what they're feeling, but also in terms of seeing when those spikes happen. Is it right before you're called to the board to do a problem? Is it right during the middle of a math assessment? And giving the teachers that kind of data, I think would be really powerful. We weren't able to get there, um, but I think there was a lot of potential there to really give some concreteness to it that could help teachers at the end of the day sort of reflect on those students who may be struggling a little bit more than others. So
Yeah, that's great. I played around with one of those for a while. It's a little device you put on your finger, it
yeah,
attaches to an app on your phone, and then it tells you where your nervous system is. Are you
yeah,
in, I think, the sympathetic versus parasympathetic? So you
yeah.
have the fight or flight, or you have the rest and digest. And we
Mhm.
want to get to the rest and digest. And one of the many ways, I'm sure you know of it, is through meditating, through
Yeah,
controlling our breath and being more present.
yeah,
And I even tried it, and it was like, whoa, there you go, I'm in the rest and digest. And
yeah,
then you get in LA traffic and whoa, okay, now I'm in the fight or flight. It's great. So it's so
yeah,
true. And then
yeah,
the breathing, and all of a sudden there it goes, it's right back to the rest and digest.
yeah,
You know what I'd love you to share with our listeners, Brent, if you're open to it, is when you were talking about the mountain breathing, because I'm a big fan of
yeah.
meditation. So
So my girls do this. So I have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old. They all went to Park Tutor, and they all come home with this. So it's just, you take your hand and you're sort of inhale, and at the top you take a pause and then exhale on the bound. So inhale, exhale, and
yeah,
just doing that when you need that moment. And I think that what I love, of course, we brought this home for us. So before dinner every night, for example, I have a bell that I ring, um, and the girls and my wife and I, we all take a moment, before eating. It's a moment of silence, kind of a moment of prayer too.
cool.
Um, and gratitude is part of that mindfulness practice, right? And
Hmm.
so I think that they don't see it as weird, because they're doing
Great.
it in school, they're doing
Yeah,
it at home. It's
right.
a totally normal thing for them. And so now they'll they'll see that in themselves. They'll recognize when they need to take a moment. So their favorites the mountain breath. So if we're in the car or something, traveling or moving or whatever, and they're
Yeah.
getting frustrated, I'll see them back there kind of tracing their fingers, and which is awesome to see, obviously. And that's what we want as parents. It's what we want as teachers. We want our kids to have those tools to do it themselves, right? I don't want to have to be there to help them execute this. I want them to be able to do it themselves, much like those kids at wilderness therapy, right? You teach them how to survive, how to take care of themselves, and that level of confidence, then right, you can go out into the world, right,
I
be
love it.
successful.
I
So
love it, man. Can I borrow that one? I'm gonna throw that
absolutely,
in because
yeah,
there's a
please,
couple breathing techniques that I share
yeah,
with kids, and that's awesome though. I love it because you have your hand, slow inhale, hold it,
yeah,
slow exhale, slow
that's right.
inhale, hold it. Yeah, that's cool. And the wilderness therapy is awesome because I watched. I'm a fan of that. What is it, Bear? I think he was. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, Bear Grylls or whatever.
Yeah, jumping out of airplanes in some
Yeah,
remote area, and then you have to
it
make.
wasn't quite, yeah, it wasn't quite that intense. It was it was a lot about again, it's a lot about getting around the fire. It's about
Hmm.
being in community.
Hmm.
um I wrote an article a few months ago, I guess now, and it's about the interdependence of teacher and student,
Yeah,
and how we are co-regulating our physiologies. We're co-regulating each other's nervous systems all of the time.
mirroring.
And so when say, like, at the end of the year, a student's made a D, you often hear, well, that student, they earned that D, as if the teacher didn't have anything to do with it,
Mm.
right? And I think it just is reflective of this idea that we are all these like individual pods in this one environment. Well, that's not true, right? We are co-regulating each other all the time. We are interdependent, right? There's that term by Thich Nhat, right? The great
Yeah,
master who
love
just
him.
passed away, right?
Love his books.
Interbeing, right? And
Right.
so we're connected with our students. So if going back to my practice as an administrator, if I am, doing my meditation, having my prayer time, my silence in the morning, and can come to school and be that much more present, that much more available and awake there, it's going to pay dividends. It's going to have a ripple effect. And so I think I'm really interested in how that works with teachers. I know your work is with students, but as an administrator now, and all of the pressure on teachers at this point, all of this on their plates,
Right.
how we're seeing them respond to that, leaving in droves and or just shifting careers. I'm interested to how do we get teachers to be at that sustainable level where they're coming every day and they're not feeling so downtrodden that now they're questioning what they're doing in their lives, because the work is so important. I do believe it's a calling, but we have to give them strategies and time, right, to be able to kind of do this work for themselves as well and stay healthy.
100% agree. Teachers are feeling the same stress the kids do, same overwhelm, same anxiety, everything. It's there's no age bracket for that. And I completely agree that they need support as well. We all do. And we're all totally interdependent. I think what you just shared kind of answered my next question is if you had any final thoughts, Brent, that you wanted to share with our listeners.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think it would be, we are not separate, right? We are all connected, and the work that you're doing on yourself at home is going to pay dividends with the kids that you have coming up here in August. They're going to be here very, very soon. And, if you, a regulated teacher is going to have that much more of an advantage to really help their kids regulate. And the ultimate purpose is what? For learning, right? And for them to grow as human beings. But we want to learn too, right? And a kid who's not, regulated in their emotions and feeling that anxiety, they're shutting down, right? They're in fight or flight. So let's do everything we can to get them to use that, right? That parasympathetic nervous system. Let's engage that so they can be here with us and learning and growing, evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. Brent Kaneft, thank you so much, brother, for being with us. Really appreciate it. And thanks for carving out time for us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.